Welcome back, Cracked fans, to another edition of the Cracked Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. As you listeners know, we are in the midst of our College Contenders series, previewing the teams that ended the year in the top 10 of the rankings at the end of the 2019 season and projecting how those teams forecast into the 2020 dual match portion of the year. As you listeners know, it's been a three-part preview on our website, crackedrackets.com. Your favorite writer, Matt Stakoyak, writing up previews each week of each team, looking at the rosters, the stats from last year's, the nitty-gritty. Then that night, he, myself, and Chris Halioris discussed the team on our mini break podcast, looking at all of those things, giving our projections for them on the year, where we think their lineup's going to end up, all of those different things to help prepare you when you're watching throughout the 2020 season. And then, of course, there's the third component, these Cracked interviews, where we have been fortunate enough to interview the coaches of the teams we have discussed thus far, not in order of when the interviews happened, but we've discussed TCU, Mississippi State, USC, UNC, and been fortunate enough to talk to all of those coaches. Joining me on some of those podcasts with those coaching conversations, also joining us on the mini break and joining us on tonight's Cracked Interviews podcast. He is the forefather of the collegetennisranks.com formula. His predictions are never far from the listed UTR, and of course, you know him as the latest dame to root for the Liberty Flames. Chris Halioris, welcome back to the Cracked Interviews podcast.
Hey, it's always good to be here, Alex, and great to get talking to some more college tennis tonight.
Yeah, it only took 4 intros to get to this point. But, it's always a pleasure to have you here, Chris. And just so you listeners know, if you didn't catch our mini break this week, we are talking Baylor Bears men's tennis, what they look like heading into the 2020 season. And tonight, we had the opportunity, and we recorded it just before this intro, so you listeners know, Chris, to talk to the man in charge of the Baylor Bears, head coach Brian Boland. And, without giving away too much, it was a blast, wasn't it, Chris?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're getting better and better, and Coach Boland just made it so much more fun. So yeah, for those of you out there listening, you'll love this one.
Yeah, without question. We talk about all of the things you want to know about the Baylor Bears. For Coach Boland in particular, his transition back to college tennis after a year away from the game, building off of the success his team had at the end of last season, winning the Big 12 tournament, making the NCAA quarterfinals, transitioning to year 2 in the program, bringing in a new recruiting class, and obviously a big storyline with not only college tennis implications, but professional tennis implications. You listeners know we talked on the Cracked Interviews podcast around the U.S. Open with Jensen Brooksby, who went on to win some matches there and obviously has worked his way into the top 300 this season. A big question: he had committed to Coach Boland's Bears, and given all of the pro success he had this fall, a question on everyone's mind is, will he be coming to college ultimately this season? And Chris, without giving it away, Coach Boland definitely answered that question tonight.
He absolutely did. So, another hour of your life and you'll have the answer.
I think it's at like the 32-minute mark if you want to scroll ahead, listeners. It's actually like 36-ish because I have a breaking news sound effect. I might have just given it away. But yeah, we talk about that. We talk about his roster. We have a lot. I mean, if you guys don't know this, a little disclaimer, I'm obviously heavily partial towards Coach Boland. His Virginia teams are the reason this podcast exists. But he is just you. After this conversation, Chris, I get it. I'm like, man, if I could play 4 years of college tennis, I don't think I'm ever going to have a girlfriend or kids at this point, or at least the way things are headed. But like, if he's still in the college tennis game, and obviously my kids will be forced to play tennis, that's who they're playing for.
Yeah, but I think it's clear that there's no way in heck that he's ever letting them come play for them.
That's true. If there's one thing you'll find, that he's quite aware of some of my tennis deficiencies. So a lot of fun with Coach Boland ahead for you listeners. So with that in mind, let's get to our interview with the one and only Baylor Bears head coach, Brian Boland.
But right now it's start time.
Joining us now on the Cracked Interviews podcast to help us continue our College Contenders series, looking at our top 10 teams heading into the 2020 dual match season. If you'll indulge me, Coach, a bit of a poem for you. Though his hair and mullet are no longer flush, his return to college tennis last year provided fans quite the rush. A man with 4 team national titles and much more success to his name. As a UVA fan, I think he could have had a few more, but for that, Steve Johnson, I mostly blame. Excitement about his team in 2020 is a feeling I know everyone shares, and that is why we are thrilled to welcome head coach Brian Boland of the Baylor Bears. Coach, welcome back to the Cracked Interviews podcast. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. You are one creative guy, and I'm going to say it, go blue.
Stop.
Well, you don't realize, Chris, is that my boys went down to Waco last year for the round of 32, and it's just stuck in his head.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they compete really hard. In fact, I was down at this week. I was in Florida. Brandon Benjamin Becker, of course, was a former Baylor Bear, and what a great guy. And of course, Adam Steinberg does a fabulous job there. And I'm certain you have a lot to look forward to this upcoming year. Now, if you want, we can talk about before we even get started here. And I think Chris would appreciate this, that the Baylor Bear football team's going to college football playoffs. I mean, I don't know.
Really?
Does Michigan even have a football team anymore?
Well, I'll say this. I'll give you a round of applause, Westhoff, put in the sound effect, please, for that playoff performance, because I know you coordinate the offense, Coach. But, it's
not the second half of Oklahoma, otherwise correct.
Well, no, are you kidding? I saw a running play, and that's a classic Boland poach in doubles. I saw Mike Shabazz do that hundreds of times. But I do want to start this podcast before we get into any tennis. I know it's the holiday season, obviously. Happy belated Thanksgiving to you and your family. But I know your son just committed to the Baylor Bears, and on behalf of the Cracked Racquets tennis community, fans of yours, congratulations to you and your family, Coach. That's awesome.
No, thank you. My daughter's a freshman at Baylor now, and she's loving it. And Bryce is really excited to join Matt Rule's program next fall. And he's had a great high school run, both when he was in Orlando and he went from soccer to kicking footballs and punting, and now had a great year playing at the highest division of Texas football in the high school level. You can imagine that's pretty intense, and he's had a lot of success. My wife and I and our family is just excited that he's going to stay at home, and we really believe in what Matt's doing here at Baylor, and it's an exciting time for our entire athletic program.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear, Coach. It's nice to get to keep him close.
Yeah, I mean, it's to have our daughter. We didn't expect that, and we let them make the decisions. I truly mean that, and as I think every young person should, and just to have them close. And although, as many parents know, no matter how close they are, you don't see them as much. They kind of do their thing and get involved in their lives, campus life, as they should. So, I see Brianna, she's on the club tennis team. And of course, as I said, I'm excited about Bryce. And my 14-year-old boy, Brendan, is trying to convince me to give him a spot on the Baylor Bear tennis team. And if I don't do that, he's threatening to go to Big Blue, and I don't know if Adam wants him yet. So, but I haven't made that commitment yet. We got a long ways to go with him, but so we're excited. Yeah, we're really thrilled for Bryce.
Can I say your daughter getting into club tennis? That's my realm, Coach. Now we're talking my game.
Keep your daughter away from Gruskin. You want no part of that.
I don't know. I've heard good things about Gruskin. I haven't heard anything good about his tennis game, but I've heard he's a pretty damn good guy. We do need to do, however, Chris, a show on Gruskin's tennis, if we could. We need to talk a little bit about, his strengths and weaknesses, mainly weaknesses, if we could, on the tennis court.
Coach, we would have if it would sell. It wouldn't sell. They'd be like, yeah, he's bad.
I mean, and Coach, the promo picture, and you probably never saw any of this last year, but the promo picture for that would clearly be Fat Gruskin. I mean, there's a I don't know 7-8-year-old picture. I don't know how old it is, Gruskin, but that's
13.
That was classic.
My bar mitzvah year.
I love it. That's funny. Well, I tell you what, it was not too long ago when you guys put Shredder on the show here, and I think he said something like I ran a 4-minute 40. Now that's changed, guys. I've dropped a lot of weight. I'm up to, I'm not a 4:40 yet, but I'm working on under a minute. I think he mentioned something like a 4-minute. We need to clarify and clear that up. I'm getting fitter, and looking forward to the new year here.
That's Austrian metrics is what that is. I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
See, I tell you what, I actually, I'm sure you're probably an avid follower of your son's Twitter account, but I actually saw that video of his video, the 50, 55, and 60-yard field goal back to back to back. That was impressive.
Well, let's be honest. That's when Gruskin goes out and he does his serve and there's nobody there and he takes that count. So when he hits it, so Gruskin says, I'm going to hit it 30 miles an hour, then 40, then 50. That's kind of his clear. Sorry, I can't help it. I mean, Chris and I have been talking. We need to set the stage here for your...
You've seen my forehand. No, you've exposed me, Coach, for years. You don't understand. I'm trying to think when the Virginia VASP.TV/men's tennis. It's burnt in my brain. When I first watched it, I'm trying to think. It was slick. You had the mullet. The jawline was strong. It must have been 2010 or maybe 08 or 09 because Sam Dev was on the team. You guys played Michigan at Baylor. I'm not sure what year that was, round of 16, but I'm pretty sure that was the first video I saw, and I was like, damn, my hairline's just like Houston Barracks. I could totally make this team.
I think I should try to bring the mullet back. I just don't know if it will come back. So send me some of this hair loss product I might need. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's part of this journey.
Yeah, no. Hey, my aunt's a dermatologist, so I can send you to the right people. But we are way off topic. Obviously, the reason we brought you on as part of our College Contenders series, we have been looking at the top 10 teams to end last year's rankings heading into the 2020 dual match season. This week, we talked about your number 6 Baylor Bears. Now, I had a bunch of different ways I wanted to take this interview, but you and I we're friendly. We exchanged some texts back and forth, and I happen to know there may have been a few things you disagreed with on our preview. So in the interest of transparency, we want to hear directly from the source, Coach. The Gomez recruiting blunder aside, you also pointed out, and I apologize, Roy Smith did not win the Houston Challenger. He made the final. That's it's a year of tennis. But all of that being said, Coach, the outlook, your thoughts on our outlook on your Bears this year.
Well, I think it's in my opinion, we talked so early about so many of these teams, and look at the Big 12, and I think the Big 12 everybody is formidable as an opponent. I mean, look at what Oklahoma State has this year. I think they're an outstanding team and can compete with anybody. Texas, obviously, returning their top 1 and 2, arguably 2 of the best, few players in the country. They're going to be tough against anyone. TCU, that speaks for itself. And then of course, Texas Tech and Oklahoma. I mean, these are tough places to play. I think anyone in the Big 12 is a formidable opponent, and with great respect for the league. And it's so early that we're still months and months away. And I know this is your job to kind of forecast where teams are, where they're going to be, and I respect that. But I think, like any year, there'll be some surprises and some things that don't go as expected. But you guys are just doing, and I say this in all seriousness, you're just doing the best you can with what you have, and we're excited about where Baylor was a year ago and what we were able to accomplish last year. I was really proud of the guys. They bought into some changes that would naturally come from any leadership change, and so we're thrilled with what had evolved over the past year. How much they love Baylor and attending school here and continuing to help build something really special. And I think we've come a long ways in a short time, and we're excited about the recruiting. We're certainly thrilled about some of the development stories that we have within the program right now. It's not so much about comparing because that's really hard to do for anybody, and it's not really something I want to focus on, but I am thrilled about where Baylor is at this point in time and excited about the future.
You mentioned, a lot of things there, but year one, the changes your roster went to, and that's a good place to start because, for our listeners who don't recall, obviously you had such a successful tenure at Virginia. You stepped away from college tennis. You come back onto the college scene last year, your first season at Baylor. And I'm curious for you, after a year away, coming back to the game, let's start here. Were there things, that maybe your perspective had changed on, that changed the way you approached the season with your coaching philosophy? Were there things maybe you had grown to not like about the game that, maybe bugged you after a year away? What was that first year transitioning back to college tennis like for you?
Well, first, let me say that the truth of the matter is I spent a year in Orlando and learned a great deal. I was around some of the best tennis coaches and tennis minds in the world. I don't think there's any question about that, and I mean that. And I learned an awful lot being part of player development, being around some incredible people who work tirelessly every day to do the best they can. It's really challenging, as you can imagine, and there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that process. And the truth of the matter is that I was and I've said this before, that I wasn't expecting to go back to college tennis. I thought there was a possibility at some point in time that in 5 or 10 years we were really invested in Orlando. We bought a house, we had our kids enrolled in school, and I got a call from the athletic director, and it was within 24 hours he wanted to meet. And I really kind of said, fine, we'll sit down and talk. But we walked out of that meeting where my wife and I felt that without question that was the best move for our family, and we haven't looked back. I believe I enjoyed my time there. It was challenging, lots of great people, like I said. But going back into college tennis was natural for me, as you can imagine. Although anytime you go somewhere different, there's always challenges and adjustments. And just because something works well in one place doesn't mean that it's going to apply elsewhere. And I think we know that anytime we embrace change. But thankfully for me, the family was excited to be back in college sports and be rooting on a team and be part of a program like Baylor, who was really going through a lot of changes. They had a number of hundreds of new employees within the department in the last couple of years. There was tons of energy. Our leader, Mac Rhodes, our athletic director, is outstanding. His leadership team was embracing myself and our family. So from the standpoint of transitioning back into a college program, I was very fortunate that I was walking into a very energized, excited situation. And I think when you look at the growth of Baylor athletics over the last couple of years, particularly this year, it's a great place to be. And we're really, really excited about what we're doing within our program. Then, of course, I had to hire staff. I kept Michael Woodson, brought in Isaac Vandermeer, who had an amazing career at Old Dominion, went on, spent 9 years on the tour. My wife and I knew him for over 20 years. He's been an incredible addition. He's a fantastic coach and an amazing human being. So he was great for our program. Kieran Forster, who came in from the LTA at one point, and he's been involved with our physical fitness and has a great tennis background. I've been very fortunate to learn and grow from him. He was a great addition to our program. And then just the welcoming of the staff who really invest in these young people on and off the court, the holistic idea of the development, and then to see some of the young guys really embrace the change, and then some of the new guys who kind of been used to a system, as you know, Schroeder, Johannes Schroeder, Will Little, Jimmy Bendick. It's obviously challenging to go into a new situation, new system, new leadership, new coaches, et cetera. But those guys were amazing and super proud of what they were able to accomplish and how they embraced a leadership role. And we had some growing pains in terms of some things that came up that, we didn't expect with Roy and so on. He's a wonderful young man. I still stay in touch with him and I hope he continues to do well. He's certainly, it's challenging out there, but that was tough. But at the same time, when I look at the body of work and how much the guys improved, how they embraced the culture of competitiveness and discipline, et cetera, and really, I think were respectful and loving and enjoyed what we were doing and how we were doing it. A lot of great things came, and they played some of their best tennis. Some guys had some of their best years ever, so it was exciting.
So all things considered, given your, the first year, and you had, as you mentioned, 3 guys that graduated and left, coming in and knowing that you kind of had the 3 seniors, and then you brought in a couple recruits and Boyton and Finn Bass, although Finn didn't get to play. Did the year? I mean, how did you feel the year went? And was it, obviously, you win the Big 12, you make quarters of NCAAs, you go 25-6. All looks good on paper. Was it about what you expected? Better than what you're hoping for? How did you think it went?
Yeah, all credit to these guys. I mean, I think we exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. Change is hard. And Jimmy Bendick and Johannes Schroeder, Will Little, and the level in which Matthias Soto came in and played, Sven Law, Adrian Boynton, who was Big 12 Freshman of the Year, did some amazing things, and like you mentioned, Finn being part of the team, he's a great player. He's someone that trains hard. He's really important to our team, and it was wonderful to have around. So a lot of great things happened in terms of guys really loving and embracing the environment and coming to the Herd Center every day, ready to get better, go to work, support each other, and I think it exceeded many of our expectations, but it's so hard to tell, what young people can do when they get together and they work day in and day out with the right perspective and attitude to make themselves and everyone around them better. And they're really careful with their approach in terms of, realizing they all have influence because they're all leaders because they have, and with leadership comes the responsibility of influence. And these guys really respected that and did a good job with their day-to-day disciplines, and a lot of things came together for us. And we had some big challenges. We went through a period of time where we couldn't even get on the court with Wake Forest because we were so thin. That's never happened to me before, and Tony was obviously understanding. But it's, we had some things that, like in any transition year are challenging. But I think when you look at the body of work, both individually in terms of development, some of the guys playing the best tennis of their life and continuing to get better and embrace the change. And then just, the results I thought were very positive. But again, college tennis is strong. You guys know that better than anybody. There's so many great teams. We have so much respect for the Big 12 and the depth of college tennis. Anytime you step on that court, you better be ready to go. It's hard.
Now, as you approached your first off season for your guys, you've had a lot of guys coming back in: Soto, Boitan, Sven La, others as well. Finn Bass coming back as well after the redshirt year, and on and on. How did you approach it? Once you have the guys bought in, now that you have a full off season to approach working with them, were they? How did you guys get to work this summer? What was that approach like?
Yeah, well, one of the things I love about this team, and I speak for everybody on it, is they truly love the game of tennis. I mean, we go into college coaching, and there's so many variables and factors that come into play, and we're all doing the best job we can. But, fortunately, I'm just blessed to be around a group of players right now, and certainly those joining our team, that they love the game. They come to work every day. They want to play. They're eager. They want to get better. They have a growth mindset. They have a lot of respect for our process and what we're doing and how we're doing it, and the entire staff. And so that in itself has been a great blessing. And I've seen a ton of improvement. I think Finn Bass is one of these guys that truly can play with almost anybody. I mean, right now he's shows signs of improvement, and he's someone that no one talks about because he's been limited in his play, and he's been acclimating to the transition. He had to sit out a year, as you mentioned, which I think in many ways is gonna be a positive for him. But I think he's gonna be a big impact. He's showing signs right now, playing some of his best tennis. And if you look back in time, he's certainly been someone that's played at a high level. So we're excited about him. Sven Law had a great semester. The rankings are one thing, but just if you look at his body of work and some of the players he competed against, both, in terms of college tennis and elsewhere, and being a top 20 player right now, he's, a great doubles player. It speaks for itself, but he's just improved his ability to play singles, and his intangibles have improved, his ball recognition has improved, his ability to disrupt has gotten better. He's an amazingly highly skilled player. So I feel like he uses his tools a lot better, and it showed signs. He won our regional. He made some good runs in nationals and so on. So he's been great. Matias Soto made the semis of our Futures event, beat Brandon Nakashima. Brandon's obviously a great player from Virginia, and Alex knows that, and with so much respect for Brandon. They had a great match, 7-6 in the third here in the Waco Challenger, and he's also had some good run in the All-American, making the 16, and someone that when he steps on the court, he's gonna make it hard for anybody. So he had some good wins last year in critical times. He beat the young man from USC when we were fortunate enough to get past USC out in the Indian Wells event, beating Daniel from Israel. And then, of course, he beat Ito from Texas, who right now is arguably the best player in the country. And that was a good win in the Big 12 championships, one of which we needed. So hats off to the job he's done, and continued to have a good summer, made some good runs at the Futures event. He loves the game. He works so hard. He's kind of one of our quiet, introverted leaders. So a lot of great things have come from him. Ryan Dickerson out of Duke, he loves this game, and boy, does he come ready to train every day, and he's really attentive to detail. He's got a big game. athletic kid, really just, again, sets a tone every day in terms of just coming to practice and wanting to work and do extra. And I've been out a few nights. My son's always dragging me out there after a long day, and Ryan's out there, still working at times. And I think with a real purpose. I mean, Ryan has been a great addition. He's been a good leader for us, and really excited for him because of how much he loves this game and how much he puts into it every single day. So a lot of great things happening. I mean, I could break down all the guys. Adrian, we've had to be careful because after last year, he didn't play last year totally healthy. I mean, he had an unbelievable year in his first semester in college. But Adrian Boyton, as you know, is a huge game and can certainly compete at the highest level. But we've worked really hard with our medical staff to get him healthy. There's some pre-existing things that we had to deal with, and he's now 100%. And we're just excited about where he was and where he's going. And he's just just one of those guys that you can't be around enough. He's a neat guy. So I'm excited about our depth. Excited about the Connie and Chris and what great guys they are and how much they've meant to our program. Of course, Connie had a good win over Texas, his number one player from last year in our regional, and made some great runs this semester. And then we have some good additions. So I'm really excited. I just love working with these guys. They love the game. They love Baylor. And they more than anything, they just love being together. So it's been fantastic.
So, Coach, you had mentioned, I'm going to go back to one scenario. I had actually completely forgotten last year about the Wake Forest scenario that you brought up. And I remember everybody was sick. You just couldn't put a healthy team together. But the one thing I was going to ask you is that indoors, I swore I saw you having a nice little conversation with Erica. There had to be a little lobbying going on to not make that a forfeit, wasn't there?
To be honest with you, I think Tony and I didn't really know. They have things. It's interesting to ask that because that conversation did come up, and the truth of the matter, if you don't show up, you should take the loss. I mean, that is a fact. But at the same time, there's so many rules that are in that process that they looked at, and so Wake Forest they got the win. Look, Tony was happy to take it, and in all due respect, I would have done the same. Tony's done a fantastic job at Wake Forest, and we look forward to playing this year. We'll definitely have a few more bodies this time around. So that was tough because it was interesting. We had the 7th worst flu season ever in history in this region at that time last year. And we literally got completely wiped out. It's never happened to me in over 20 years. And I can remember our doctor getting on the phone with them and our AD, and we just didn't have a team. I mean, we could have won, but then what do you do is you push guys into a situation where you play with a few guys that may not even be okay to play, and then you don't get to go to indoors. And you know how special that event is, and it's kind of once in a year opportunity. And we Tony understood, and so did Wake, and we'll be back on the schedule this year. They're coming here, and then so on. So it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because it's rare that happens. And again, that's one of those weird moments. You're back in year one. I'm sure that's exactly what you were expecting, Coach, when you signed up for the job.
It's definitely the first time I've ever seen, that's the first time I've ever seen a match where literally, so many guys got sick. You almost think it's amazing you don't see it more because the guys are all around each other so much that when somebody gets, the actual flu, it could knock everybody out. But it's the first time I've ever seen that happen. It was crazy.
Honestly, Chris, I agree. And it was the flu just took over the team. We actually had a couple mono cases from guys who showed up here in January that I recruited. So we were kind of coming off some of that too. It was just kind of one of those challenges. It's a new year. A lot of, as you can imagine, things are changing. And remember, you coach college tennis for so long as I have, and you think, I've seen it all. Well, no, you haven't. I mean, let's be honest. You never knew when you got into college tennis that there's be this guy named Gruskin who drove everybody nuts. I mean, so again, there's always something, right?
Yeah, I'm going to fact check you. Clemson 2014, that Virginia match. I feel like Damajan ended up clinching it in 3, but like half the team had the flu.
Yeah, we were struggling that day, and that was close. Wasn't that at Clemson, if I remember?
I believe so.
Yeah, that was close. And, again, go look at some of these teams and the depth of these teams and the conferences. I mean, ACC, their depth, how many great teams. I mean, I look back and I think what we were able to accomplish, all credit to these guys. I mean, they won the matches. I haven't won any of them. So these guys went in and won, 140 straight matches in ACC, which we have so much respect for the conference. There's so many great teams, great programs, great schools. That consistency I'm very proud of, but all credit to the players over the years that kind of, had such a respect for the program, the school, the tradition. And that's when momentum really can take over. And we also got very lucky. The truth of the matter is you don't win that many matches in a league of that caliber without some things just going your way. And that's true with all of this, right? Like we talk about, winning championships, making the Final Four, et cetera, et cetera. But, there's so many factors that go into it. And you guys know what they are. So, you could do everything right and you still don't end up, where you think you should have or could have. So, it's hard. It's really hard. A lot of great teams.
There are some Udzahorn losses at 6 that still burn in my mind. So, yeah, I feel you, Coach. Sorry, but before we get too sidetracked and make it a Virginia podcast, I'll take this chime. You mentioned the conference, the Big 12 being back there. It's a unique conference in that there are only 6 teams, and I'm curious now that you've gotten the rhythm of that, because obviously you play many more conference matches in the ACC. Is that something that you will factor into the way you pace your team this season?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, doing the schedules an art, and we're looking at our conference. We're able to, one of the things that helps us, and did help us last year as well, and we're back on the schedule again, is, when we get to go to a tournament like the Oracle out in Palm Springs, where, Berkeley plays University of Southern California. And so there's, that's some great matches for us. Going up, Texas Tech's joining this year as well. And we're doing a Big 12 Pac-12 matchup, actually. So we'll play both Berkeley and USC, and those are both great programs, great teams, great coaches. So we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, there's indoors, assuming we can qualify. So there's some really good opportunities, and then trying to balance it out to make sure that, it's different when you play a lot of the great teams, and there's so many of them, but I think there's some great programs in there that maybe they don't always rank this high, but boy, do they push you and they make it tough. You need to be ready. And also you want to challenge guys. You can't go into a season thinking, well, I'm just going to play the same 6 guys. You need to make sure that other guys on the team, one, they might need more time off. They might health reasons. Maybe a guy like Jensen's case, he's going to go play another tournament. Maybe that happens with another player on our team. We used to do that at Virginia occasionally when opportunities were there. I remember the year that, Michael Shabazz got sent to Chile with the Davis Cup team, and Alex Damajan at one point was, he got into Miami with the main draw wild card. So, things happen and you adjust, and that's where depth comes in. And, when you put a guy into the NCAAs with the pressure that exists there, and that's what makes college tennis so special. These guys have to learn to deal with incredible pressure, and I have so much respect for it, as I think so many others have who maybe didn't know that much about it now really do. I think it has a tremendous amount of respect around the world. You need to be able to put a guy in that's been there, that's been in the arena, that's felt the pressure of a dual match, because it's different. And I have a lot of respect for these guys. It's playing for something a lot bigger than yourself. It's not just you go out, you play. If it doesn't work out, you go on to the next tournament. And certainly that's a grind. And we have so much respect for what these guys do on the tour and the challenges and futures. I mean, this is really, really hard. But college tennis is a lot about accountability, and I think they grow a lot from it. So it's great.
It's interesting just to harp on this, because for you guys last year, I think you came in as the 2 or 3 seeds in the Big 12 tournaments, but the point is you got the chance to play, although I don't even remember if TCU was upset at this point, but accumulate, another ranked win that maybe the number 1 seed Texas didn't get, and then ultimately after you beat Texas, you get that top 8 seed, which allows you to host a round of 16 match. I mean, I'm looking at your schedule, Wake Forest coming to you guys. I believe you're going to Illinois, the indoor as well. But, from a ranking perspective, and Chris is the math guy, so maybe he could speak to this more, but those opportunities to get ranked wins, because there's only 5 other conference matches. Is there almost, something to being the 2 seed, getting that shot at an extra ranked win, give you that extra boost heading into that final poll before NCAA seedings come out?
Yeah, in this case, you guys are looking way further ahead. I know you mentioned that we would go to Oklahoma and kind of see if we could squeeze in a different spot by doing, having it work out a certain way. Not at all. I mean, look, you just go, you prepare for every match, you get up every day, try to make you guys better. You think long term. You make decisions that are in the best interest of these young people's development. How can they get better every day? How can they maximize? That's a great thing about having depth. You can make some of those decisions, and I think when you take that approach, and you certainly go into every single match, you put your guys on the court. You always want to put your best effort forth. You expect them to compete, physical, mentally, emotionally, put everything out there. But you don't want to make a decision to put a guy in a dual match unless it's in the best interest long term of the team and for the player individually and their development. And I feel like over the years, look, I I've coached a long time. I've made my mistakes. I've thought short term at times when I wish I would have thought a little bit bigger picture and long term. And so, I feel like I'm in a good spot in that way. I've had a lot of experiences, made some, there's nothing like experience and surrounded by some great people. So I don't know what will happen come, mid-April. But certainly I don't care who you're playing in the Big 12. Like, that's the great thing about the Big 12. I mean, we could have, 6 teams all in the top 20. Maybe I'm not even, maybe it could be even, it could be even more competitive than that. So, again, it's you never walk on the court in a Big 12 match and think, well, this is going to be an easier match. I mean, that's crazy, because you're going to be in a battle and you're going to play an NCAA tournament team that can go deep in the tournament. And I like it. I think it's great. Big 12's highly competitive. Coaches have personality. They're tough places to play. I mean, you guys know what it's like to go to TCU. I mean, it's crazy. So I think that's positive, and it's hard to play in Waco. I mean, we were 16-0 last year. That's a tribute to our fans. And Waco, it's a tough place to play. And Texas went up to Oklahoma State and Oklahoma last year. Of course, they won the national championship, and they squeezed both those matches 4-3. So it's tough. And we went to Texas Tech and lost. So it's hard, really hard.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Coach, obviously we overanalyze that a little bit, but it's always fun. But one thing I do find interesting is kind of how different coaches set that schedule up. So from your perspective, do you have all your dates booked, or did you leave yourself an open date if for any reason you might need to schedule anything else?
No, I leave space for that.
You always leave dates.
Yeah, leave. Well, I wouldn't say plural, but singular at least, and sometimes one or two. But we try to arrange it in the sense that we can deal with things as they go, but and not kind of box yourself into a situation that you can't be flexible. And I think that's true with how you deal with players and develop them and so on, that you don't want to box yourself in, but sometimes that's just the nature of what you need to do based on the year or the schedule. And this year's a little different. I mean, we do have a lot of depth, and we're looking forward to playing a number of challenging matches and playing a deep lineup. We're going to play a deep lineup. We're going to play a lot of guys, and we're looking forward to it. And then we got to kind of assess the injuries, when they come back from break, or kind of how things evolve. I mean, there's always the possibility of maybe it's in the best interest of a certain guy to redshirt. So again, all the factors kind of play over the next few months, and try to make decisions that are in the best interest of the players individually, and that always works itself out.
You mentioned your depth, Coach, and you used the J word, so I'm going to bring him up now. One of the biggest questions heading into your team, something we talked about a lot on the podcast, and, we wanted to wait to have you on, but on your roster, as of right now, even, despite all of the success Jensen Brooksby had this year, breaking into the top 300, getting wins at the U.S. Open, it sounds like he is coming to your Baylor Bears program this season, correct?
Yeah, he's coming, and we're looking forward to it. I think he'll be someone that, he has great respect for college tennis, as you guys do. He respects college tennis. He loves being part of a team. There's no question he's eager to do that. You only get one crack, and truly, we'll make sure, and you would imagine that, Jensen's someone that will have to, take some opportunities that will come his way in terms of scheduling and being able to play some events, and he'll have that flexibility as anyone would, in a similar situation. So we're excited. Look, I've gotten to know Jensen. He's an amazing young man. He works with one of what I consider one of the best coaches in the world, in Joe Gilbert and that staff. And he's going to continue to get better. I think he's great for American tennis. He's a wonderful young man. He's articulate, speaks well, and we're excited to have him at Baylor. And we'll take it a day at a time. I mean, we just got to look at every situation on a daily basis and make sure we're putting our best effort forth with what's going to ultimately help him get better and to play a schedule that makes sense. And as I said, with our depth this year, that's really helpful.
So obviously, when you've got someone like Jensen, it's in his best interest, right, to let him go out and play the tournaments he needs to play to develop his career. But I got to know, did you give him any ultimatums like, hey, you have to be at NCAAs, or you have to be there for the Texas TCU weekend, or was there any of that talk going on, or was it just, hey, we're just going to do whatever's best?
No, look, I mean, at the end of the day, and I sincerely mean this, Jensen wants to be part of the process. But at the same time, we need to do what's best to provide him the opportunity to maximize his development day in and day out, and we're going to do that. But there wasn't, per se talk about, okay, you're going to play this, and then you got to play this. I mean, the only thing I got to make sure he plays, if by chance, and I know, Chris, you will appreciate this, but look, if we play Big Blue and Alex is around, we've got to have Jensen Brooksby on the court, and he'll know that. So, I'm kidding. I had to throw it out there. But no,
that would have to be an early NCAA match.
No. Give me Fenty. Look, on the pod, I'll take Fenty.
Oh, you guys! Fenty's a heck of a player. Gosh, what a great player that kid is. So, no, look, it's going to be a day at a time, week at a time, and we're going to do what's in the best interest of each individual. This is no different than, you look back at some of the teams of the past. I mean, guys end up having to play Davis Cup. Some that went to Davis Cup several times. So did Sanam. These guys played other events. They got ATP events they were able to play because they got into. That's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's an opportunity for them to get better. Somebody else on the team has to step up. I think that flexibility is fine and can be a really positive thing for a team throughout the regular season. It needs to be managed well. The great thing about Jensen, he's an unbelievable young man, great integrity, wonderful guy, love his family, great people, and his coach is fabulous and world class. And they see the benefits of this process, and we're gonna tie everything in to make sure that each day counts and that he's taking advantage of the opportunities that are provided to him, that he's earned. And at the same time, he's going to want to be part of this process. And he's excited to be part of a team. One thing that Jensen did, for those of you who don't know him, this guy is a sports fanatic. He just loves sports. He reminds me a lot of John Isner. You talk to John, he wants to talk about, all for NFL and college football and college basketball. And, Jensen is amazing in that way. He loves college football, and, he knows the rosters better than anyone. And so he has a lot of respect, not only just for the college process and college sports and values education and so on, but Jensen's also somebody that understands that, he plans to play this game hopefully for 15 plus years, and he's going to make sure that, he looks at each opportunity and takes advantage of it and maximizes himself each and every day. He's got a great perspective. He's got great people around him, and I have tons of respect for the kid. And you guys have talked to him as well. I mean, I'm sure you could see that through. He's a neat guy.
Absolutely. And I have to say it, Westhoff, give me a breaking news sound effect, please. I feel like a lot of people may have come here for that little tidbit, Coach. So I know I speak for college tennis fans everywhere when I say we are so excited to have Jensen as a part of college tennis in 2020. And earlier you mentioned the success that Adrian and Mateus and Sven and Konstantin Franzen have had, but there's some and Ryan Dickerson as well. But you have this class of newcomers, and you throw Jensen in the mix. You throw in Garcia as well as Rahul Dokia. Chris Franzen, Konstantin's little brother. And now you are looking at a lot of depth. And I know you played a bunch of different doubles combinations throughout the fall. Obviously, a lot of them got singles rep. But as you look at this team, you look at the depth. And you've had teams with depth before. But how do you begin to sort that out, with the freshmen, getting them to buy in, figuring out what everyone plays? How will you approach that process as the season nears?
Look, again, just like we just mentioned in talking about Jensen, we got to look for opportunities for guys to continue to compete and make sure that they're first and foremost taking care of day-to-day things that are going to allow them to maximize themselves. I think we do a really good job of taking the holistic development approach where, all the details need to be covered in order to be your best. And these guys take that seriously. They love the game. And I believe they know that day in and day out, they're going to be around, some great players with different styles and, a lot of individual attention from a staff standpoint to have an opportunity to get better, to see how good they can get. And that's really what I enjoy the most about it. And that's what's great about, I think people sometimes don't understand, unless they're on the inside of some of these programs. There's some wonderful coaches out there, great people, great minds, and putting a ton of effort into these young people, not just on the court, but off the court, and their day-to-day life and the relationship they build with them. And there's nothing more special. So the impact you can have is profound. And these guys, I'm very proud and prideful of some of those Virginia players that I had over the years that, they're still out there playing. I look at the 2017 team, and I think 5 of the starting 6 are, at world rankings and the working their way up, and they're still battling. And it's great for college tennis to look at what some of these other programs have done with, Kevin Anderson's success, and Benny Becker we mentioned, who was at Michigan, of course, Stevie Johnson, and it speaks for itself. John Isner. I talked to Bobby Reynolds tonight. I mean, great career, did really well on the tour. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, you got to look at each individual. You got to kind of forecast what it is that they need and what's best for them. And ultimately, I think that's what's ultimately best for the program. And I'm excited about Alex Garcia. He made a semifinals of a future recently, and he's a big guy. He's not a typical Spanish player. He's got a big game, big serve, likes to come forward. I've been over there. I've seen him. I've gotten to know his family. Amazing people. Super excited about the addition of Alex. Alejandro, we call him Alex, and he had a great visit here. And then Joseph Chen, he's another guy that I think is going to come in and, kind of an unknown, but he's going to add some depth, special guy, and we'll see what goes on from there. But I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm excited about where the guys were, where they are, how much they've improved. They're playing some of their best tennis. And I just, again, I love college tennis. I believe in what we do and how we do it. And I think there's so many great coaches and programs and people out there working incredibly hard, and there's so many positive stories. So I know you guys feel the same way, or you wouldn't do what you do.
Yeah. So Coach, you bring up Alex Garcia, and for our listeners that heard our preview pod, we actually didn't even mention Alex because, and of course, I'll lay the blame on Gruskin because he's the one that has you on speed dial, not me, right? I asked, I tried to ask the question, is this kid coming? And we kind of thought, well, he's not on their roster, so he must be a fall guy.
I would never take my hate out on another Alex. As a fellow Alex,
in fairness to Cody Soto, who's our SID, and I say this in all sincerity, he's overseeing some of the football, and then he's got volleyball, who's having a nice little run here. So I'm not going to hold him to having the bios up quite yet.
But you bring him in now, and I look in, and obviously you heard our preview, right? And we said, hey, with Jensen, super solid top four, and then you kind of, in our viewpoint, right? We had guys like Ryan Dickerson and Finn Bass and Franson and maybe even Chen, right? All hitting that 5-6 spot. But now I look at that and say, for sure, Alex is cracking that. Now you're probably deeper than anybody through 5 at that point. Now that's got to be, very promising. It's got to make you feel good about the lineup coming into the year.
Well, and again, I understand that you guys forecast these things. You have to foreshadow what might be ahead and what you guys think. But, a lot changes. We have a lot of guys on our team that are working hard. I think there'll be some guys that surprise some people in terms of where they could play. I understand it. I think every coach looks at it and says, okay, this is kind of where guys stack up. But I sincerely mean, I think you'll see some guys play a lot of different spots. They're capable of it. They can step up, and we want to make sure that they all and we tell them that, we don't set it in stone. We certainly don't want to do that early. I want to make sure guys have a chance to move up and down the lineup and have an opportunity to play and compete against the players at all different levels for their development. And I know that Jensen, of course. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, he's going to be an immediate, profound impact. He's a great player, and that speaks for itself. But there's also a bunch of guys in there that we'll see what happens. And then there's the health factor, right? It's hard to keep guys healthy. The game's really physical. It's tough, and gotta see how that plays out. So it's a long season, but I'm really excited about it. I know you guys are the biggest college tennis fans there is, and I know that all of us are grateful for that, and I truly mean that. I know we give each other a hard time. I've picked on Gruskin a little bit. He deserves it. Chris, don't always agree. We can agree to disagree on certain things, but I in fairness to you, unless you're on the inside of things, and I know you respect this, that sometimes you can't really, there's so many moving parts, so many programs, so many great teams and coaches, and there's so much depth that. How are you supposed to know, so you do the best you can, you forecast some things, that's your job, and then you get people's blood pressure perked up a little bit, maybe me a tiny bit, but we still love you, and I think it's going to be a fun season. There's so, look at some of these teams, Ohio State, another great team, of course, it's going to be a great team. Southern Cal has a great team. Peter Smith did a great job there, and of course, that's going to be interesting. Brett Macy now back at Southern Cal, great team. I think there'll be some sleepers in there that will surprise us. I mentioned Oklahoma State's, I think, a very, very good team with Jay, and they're hosting the NCAAs, which is a big advantage. The Elite Eight, they host the Big 12 tournament, and so we're going to be there 3 times. So It will be interesting. I mean, you've seen it. So many, you mentioned our year last year. If you had told me at the beginning of the year, look, you're going to win the Big 12s and beat Texas and finish 6th of the country, make the Elite 8, that would have, at times, I would have been, wow, that's pretty impressive for this group. But all credit to the kids. I mean, they're the ones who rallied around, came to work every day, worked hard, pushed each other to get better, worked hard on their games, loved every minute of it. So it's a lot of variables, and I have a lot of respect for these coaches. I know a lot of people out there trying really hard, being an Eddie Hurley yesterday and running into a bunch of coaches that coach at all kinds of different levels. And that's spent some time with Sarah from Virginia, who's a women's coach, done a fabulous job. Andres Pedrosa, who I love, obviously, doing a great job at Virginia. And Alex, of course, is a big Wahoo fan, but, we'll forgive him for that. But they're going to have a great team too, and so again, it just never ends. And with Tony Bresky, the job he's done at Wake, and North Carolina has another great team. I mean, it never ends. Mississippi State, I guess I have to say that because you have a big ally there from Mississippi State. If he gets on the show, he's gonna start talking. Of course, Rose-Hulman. Now that's we should probably talk about that, right, Alex? Rose-Hulman, where a man here played. Look out! I don't know how they're doing, but
you didn't mention Michigan, Coach. Yeah, they're all in.
I mentioned Benny. I mentioned Big Blue. I started the conversation with Big Blue, and then I mentioned how much I love and respect Benjamin Becker and Adam.
I know. So you listened to our preview pod, and I have to know your immediate reaction when you heard Gruskin say, "There's a chance that Brooksby comes in and doesn't even crack the doubles lineup." Was it what the F is he thinking, or was it?
Look, no. It was something like this. I'm not gonna hire Gruskin to be on my staff.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. The kid's gonna play singles and doubles, okay?
Okay, so the follow-up to that is, A, trust me, Coach, on the recruiting trail, we would be going neck and neck. B, if I'm raising your blood pressure, I would like some of the credit for you losing all of this weight. You're welcome. And C, it was in the context, and this is how I'll get to my question of, because this past fall you guys had so much success from a bunch of different guys, and you mentioned Boitan, Soto, Franzen, La, those core four coming back. I know you lose, all three of your doubles teams, half of them are gone, and there is something to continuity. You look at, your teams at Virginia, JC and Colin, or Ty and Mac, who played together for so long, Julian and Justin Shane, who played together for so long. But you have a lot of different talented guys who you can play with in the doubles lineup. And I know when you have depth, you want to give guys opportunities. So that was the context of saying, Jensen, not because it's a talent thing. But with that in mind, how will you manage the doubles lineups? Because it's completely different pairings.
Well, and this is something maybe, people, if you've done this a long time, I think, obviously, you look at different game styles. You look at guys who have spent some time together on the court. Look at the job that Ryan Dickerson and Matthias have done this year. And, of course, Hani and Sven have had some great success as well. I think both top 25 teams and play, I think they're just getting started together. Jimmy Bendick and Sven Law hadn't played at all together until I came to Baylor. And, it just felt right. My gut feeling was we need to give them a shot. And Isaac and Isaac Vandermeer and Michael Woods, my assistant, liked the idea. So, they ended up being the number one team in the country. And, Jimmy didn't play at the end of the year in the doubles lineup the year before. So, and he's a great doubles player doing so many great things. So happy he's on the tour. And Sven, it speaks for itself. So those guys had a lot of skill. And they just gelled well. They had their game styles fit each other, their chemistry, their camaraderie on the court. They pushed each other, tons of energy. So, we look at all the factors. And then I think at the end, if you've done this a long time, you go with your gut, instincts, kind of get a feel. This feels right, and it's no different than a tennis player. They step up to the line at, big point at, 5-all and third. Of course, you're playing Gruskin, then you just have to put the ball in the box. But you step up and you go with your gut. It's a big point. And so it's the same thing for a coach. I think when it comes down to it, you got to use your instincts, your experience, and consult with your assistants and make the call. But it's going to work out. It's always worked out. I'm proud of the double success we've had. Super proud of what we were able to do at Virginia, of course, with some of those guys. And look at, it's pretty special what a lot of college guys have been able to do, stay on the tour all those years, playing at the professional level, at the highest level. I'm proud of Dom Englot and Trent Huey and so many others. I mean, it's a neat story. There's a lot of great stories out there of guys making, a really good living on the professional tour, coming out of college doubles. And I know that they would, we had the Bryant brothers here for an event earlier on this year, what a thrill it was to have Mike and Bob and Sam Query in town. And they talked to the team and just expressed, how special this time playing for Stanford, college tennis, what it meant to them and how it catapulted them to do some of the things they've done. And to talk about two great ambassadors for the game and actually make that three with Sam. I mean, a lot of guys look at the impact the Bryant brothers have just with doubles and so many other college guys. So sorry to kind of get off track there, but our doubles is going to work out fine. And I have no intention of playing you or Gruskin together at all.
No, I was going to say Gruskin-Rothman is a good three doubles team in its prime.
Gruskin, I will let him text me. I will sometimes answer his ridiculous questions, but letting him make any decisions as to where some guys should play or who should play or whether Brooksby should play doubles, that's not happening.
First of all,
especially after some of those comments.
First of all, asking if Lee Singer was a glorified pusher was not a ridiculous question, Coach. That deserved an answer. I just kidding.
You need to go back to your club team.
No.
Chris, let's just call a spade a spade. Would you hire Gruskin after some of those comments?
Oh, are you kidding me? I wouldn't hire Gruskin to mop my floor. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Although I must
but
say,
I do think though, Coach, that he could probably get you through the Valpo match. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. Hell no, not if we're putting them in. We can't do that. But I'll tell you what, now to Gruskin's credit, I believe this should go on record. I think it already has because he likes to brag about himself. But 2017, did they not win the national championship on the club side?
That's true. I have a ring. I mean, I don't have a ring, but in theory, a metaphorical ring. It's very true. And look,
it's all relative, man. That's a big deal. You should be proud of that. I'd love to see my daughter have that chance. She's on the club team here. They have a good time.
No, again, if she needs the ins and outs, the key is it's all about the women's side because all of the guys are the same level. But if you have a good girl, you're going to win. And that's why we won. Because my brother's girlfriend, Laura, who had played for the varsity team in Michigan before she tore her ACL, she was why we won. I mean, it had nothing to do with me, Coach. Although I will say senior year undefeated until the finals where I caught a case of the double faults at night. But we'll talk about that at a later time.
I got to be honest, Chris. This is everyone just turned the radio off.
yeah.
Literally, the whole thing just went blank.
Yeah.
Your producer in there is like, please stop.
I will say someone on this podcast recommended we do a pod breaking down my game, and it was not me.
It wasn't me.
I know, but everybody needs practice, in the media realm. So you just need to get some people together to practice. No one's going to listen.
Our producer, Daniel Westoff, has never chimed in on a podcast, but after you just said that, Coach, everyone tuning off the radio, he texted me and said, literally. And so I think
I like this Daniel Westoff guy. This guy knows what he's doing. He's my man. Keep it up, Daniel. You're the man. We all got to keep this Gruskin in line, though. But I'll say it again. Go blue, baby.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it, Coach. And again, we've taken so much of your time, so we will wrap things shortly. But you've mentioned how strong you think the Big 12 conference is. And for you guys, obviously, everything starts there. Can you talk about, how you guys think you stack up in the Big 12, how important conference play will be for your season?
I think conference play is always important for anybody's season. But at the same time, look, once the NCAA tournament starts, anything's possible, right? So, we're going to gear towards playing some of our best tennis in May. The Big 12 certainly does nothing less than prepare you at the highest level for that. And having, the NCAAs and the conference championships in Stillwater, I think is a big positive for the Big 12 this year. And of course, they have great facilities and great setup. So, I've said it, like I said at the beginning, look at some of the teams last year. I don't know, Oklahoma maybe finished 4th or 5th, whatever, but, they were in the Sweet 16. So all those teams are going to prepare you to play for national championship come May. And I think it's mutual. Everybody's, we're competitive. We have our days where maybe we're not the kindest, but to each other as we should be. But the Big 12 and the Big 12 coaches do a great job. And every match is going to be great for college tennis, great for the fans, and great to see what happens in the postseason. So, look, we're excited about it, and we'll see how it plays out. But you guys can go ahead and try to figure out who's going to finish second, third, and act like you know what you're talking about, and who's going here and this and that. But in all due respect, I know it's your job. And in fairness to you guys, I got to be careful here because you have the microphone. But in all fairness, Chris, I do think that you know a little bit. Gruskin knows nothing.
Yeah. I'll take it, Coach. I'll take it.
I'm kidding. You guys are great. I mean it. I think we need more of you for college tennis.
Look, I'm the pretty face. That's my role. It always has been.
So on a much more serious note, Coach, obviously this year we had, the passing of Mark Hurd, who's obviously been a big influence in the Waco community, in the Baylor program, in college tennis in general. I mean, all around. But I don't know, to what extent you guys got, he was physically around and you saw him, and has that had, what kind of effect has that had down there?
Well, first, Chris, thank you for bringing that up, and I'm glad you did. I think we all owe Mark Hurd at every level of tennis a debt of gratitude. I mean, this man absolutely loved this game, and he, more than anything, wanted to provide opportunities for young people to maximize themselves and have a chance to reach and accomplish their dreams. I got to know Mark on a personal level over the last year and a half. And we miss that guy every day. Mark Hurd, Paula Hurd, their beautiful daughters, meant so much, not only just to the Waco community, Baylor University, Baylor Athletics, and Baylor Tennis, but the whole tennis world. And when I went to Mark's celebration that weekend, that final weekend, when we flew to California, it was truly a celebration of an amazing life who touched people from so many walks of life. There were people from, I thought it was interesting. We need more people, Democrats who made it into the higher offices of this land, Republicans, people from different places in government, from all over the tennis world, from the highest level of the professional ranks to people that were just coaching, from college tennis, from the world of business, CEOs from the biggest companies, most influential companies on the planet, to those who ran small businesses and how Mark influenced them. I have so much love and respect for that man. One thing that I got from Mark is that I didn't know, just like everybody, kind of how things were evolving. But Mark was very honest with me about our responsibility and obligation as coaches, as teachers, as mentors, to take so seriously and honor that responsibility day in and day out. And I got the best of Mark Hurd. I'm so grateful for what he poured into me. We never talked about business, to be honest with you, in terms of, who's going to beat who, college tennis, this and that. But what Mark was genuinely interested in is how are the players doing? How are things going with their lives? What do you think about how we can maximize opportunities for young people trying to grow the game, or trying to get involved in the game? He cared deeply, and I mean deeply, not just about, Baylor tennis, but Mark was a big picture guy, Matt. He loved the sport, and he loved the sport nationally. He loved American tennis. He wanted to impact American tennis. He was a big picture guy. He wasn't a guy that, it wasn't about Baylor men's tennis. That was a small spoke in the wheel. It was about Baylor athletics, and more importantly, Baylor University. I mean, Mark just, prior to his passing, 6 months ago, him and Paula are opening what is going to be called the Mark and Paula Hurd Welcome Center at Baylor University. A beautiful welcoming to our campus and to our students and people that visit. He was a big picture guy, and there was no difference how he dealt with business, life, and of course the tennis world. So I think that was important for me to say, and I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to do it. I love Mark. We think about him all the time. He did a lot for me on a personal level. More than that, he's affected so many lives in tennis and elsewhere, and his family is first class, wonderful people. So thank you.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you saying that, Coach. Obviously, I never had the chance to meet him, but it's not only college tennis. What Oracle is doing for the challenger level and just for opportunities throughout the tennis world. I mean, that isn't possible without Mark Hurd spearheading that effort. So his reach, his influence on tennis felt throughout the tennis universe. This podcast, the opportunity to cover all of these events, doesn't happen without his, constant dedication to the product. And look, for your team, obviously it's the Hurd Tennis Center. You know how much he means for Baylor, and I know that was a somber note, but for your team this year, you talk about all he did to position you guys well. We've talked about the depth. We've talked about all of the talent. You've mentioned Jensen Brooksby will be in the doubles lineup, and that speaks to how successful your team could potentially be this season. Now, I know you are going to say take it one match at a time, but you've had a lot of talented rosters, and as you go into the season with this roster, not in terms of goals, but I guess what do you expect from this team on a day-to-day basis?
I expect a bunch of guys that come to the Herd Center every day with a desire to get better, and I say that in the most serious way. Like they love the game. They want to get better. They love being part of the team. They love Baylor University. They believe in the staff and the process, and they're going to let things work themselves out. Again, it's easy to talk about the process, but I really believe these guys embrace it because of what they want to do with their tennis and how seriously they take that process. And it's day to day. It's an effort that comes from every angle, and it's not easy to do it right, and it takes a village. So, look, I we'll see how all that kind of comes together. But I do know this. I do know that the Baylor Bears will be formidable. They're going to come ready to compete every day. And we'll leave it on the court. We'll do it the right way. We're excited about where we were, where we are, and certainly the upcoming season across college tennis is exciting. So, look, I think we're in and Mark and I talked a lot about this, and that's what I hope people do understand about him. His mission with tennis and with the Oracle Series and with professional tennis and opportunities in college tennis. He just wanted to provide opportunity, and it wasn't about, Baylor tennis or about this specific agenda. And that's what I think made Mark so special. It was truly about the sport. And he believed that American tennis over time was going to turn the corner. And I know it's only a matter of time. A lot of people working hard. A lot of people love the sport like you guys, promote the sport. And we have a really exciting upcoming college tennis season ahead of us, and we certainly hope that we're a big part of that process.
And look, if your team needs any bulletin board material, you know where to send them.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, to Chris. Yeah, we've actually already cut and spliced some of his stuff from yesterday, so we'll hold that off so I can send him throughout the year. Chris, if you don't mind, if you could Twitter your cell phone out, that'd be great, so I can get it. Actually, I'll be Twittering those as we cut and paste the slice, and we're going to Twitter them out. We're not going to send them to Chris.
Exactly. It's perfect. Well, with this fun spirit in mind, there's one, and you've been so kind with your time, there's one last thing I want to do, and I'll limit it to 3 questions this time. But whenever we have a guest on, we like to have a little fun with them at the end with a rapid-fire-esque segment. Now, as you are a return guest, we've already done a traditional rapid-fire, so I want to do a college tennis amended rapid-fire. That sound good to you, Coach?
You got it.
All right, Westoff, give me a rapid-fire sound effect, please. Okay, so again, we speak from time to time, and I teased my rock, paper, scissors idea, and, it's okay, but I want to go with a different one here. I'm going to shoot big. This is one of the ideas we've been harping on, and when we talked to Coach Roditi, he mentioned that this has been thrown around before, so I'm curious your thoughts. Lawless lineups. And what I mean by that is it's not 1 through 6. And under my preference, I would have the home team get to set the lineup as a home field advantage. But rather than play it, it's just you don't know the lineups until beforehand. Coaches can play whomever, wherever, and you just you go out there and you play.
Chris, control this guy, please. Where's the? Oh, jeez. No. I don't know. What else do you say to that, Chris?
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. So for a no-ad double set, it's like anyone could win, right? So 1 through 3 doubles, does it really mean anything? I mean, look, Sven and Jimmy at number 1, yeah, them playing at 1, I get it. But, all 3 of your doubles teams were phenomenal last year. Those 2 7-6 matches that Michigan won against you, Coach, in the round of 16. I don't know if you know that, but we took the doubles point off you.
So you'd stay in line and actually pay attention. So you actually knew your facts when you got on the radio. Because then otherwise you're giving Chris the wrong information.
It's true. But I'm saying the level of doubles across all 3 courts. And again, you point to those Virginia teams. I mean, JC and Colin were as good as any of those other doubles teams. So the idea of, just playing the doubles teams wherever you'd like, that at the singles is radical. You want to see a match I always remember. I was there for Torp versus Nuno 2017 NCAA quarterfinals, and them coming down 3-all match, 1 singles, 2 of the best players in the country. Yes, I get that in singles. But in doubles, at least, a little feasible?
All right, next rapid fire. Chris, control this guy. Where's Westerhoff, the producer? Help us out, man.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
All right, I'm trying to think of another. Now I'm rattled. All right, I'm gonna go with the new one.
It takes a lot.
All individuals in the fall, all do team things in the spring, and the reason we do that is so, and this is going to take a lot of coordination, Coach. I might need you to pull some strings. We can do a college tennis Laver Cup at the U.S. Open. I'm talking like an all-star game. Yeah, like it could be West Coast and South versus Midwest and Northeast.
Yeah, open to the ideas of summer, working hard, and then the fall being the individual season, and then doing the team aspect in the spring. The only thing I want to make sure that at least we have an opportunity to continue to do is finish those matches. I've never been ever convinced that team matches should necessarily stop at 4. I think there could be a delay for a team that wins, and in some cases I understand it with the national indoors and some of the postseason, but we're going to try to finish those matches. And I think a lot of times those teams that those guys go out there and let's say the match is over 5-1, some of those matches that they play in front of their teams and some of the crowd that loves the game and stays around, that's pretty exciting and some great tennis. So I'd like to continue that when we can. I think we did a good job finishing some matches last year, but as far as the individual in this fall, I know it's been kicked around for a long time. I know there's certainly some complications with it from the NCAA and others, and I know the ITA has been involved in it as well. But I'm open to it. I think it depends on a lot of the details. Sure. We'll keep you off the board.
That's fair. What did you think about hosting that round of 16 match? Obviously, that it was nice that you got to host it, but just that format in general.
I think it's great. I think it's great for the game. I mean, look, we packed this place against UCLA. If you consider that some of these Sweet 16 matches were happening on the men's and women's side at 9 a.m. With an empty stands because the times during the week were just not realistic. And then you can play a primetime match. The experience, the opportunity is just incredible. Look, the experience we had, and there's never been a facility that's been able really, and in fairness to all the facilities have been great. There have been so many great ones. They just cannot do 32 teams. And then we're running into playing these matches on Mondays and Tuesdays, and we're playing 9 a.m.s first. I think it's something we have to do. There hasn't been a better solution, and we had a great experience. And so did both UCLA and Baylor. Win or lose, I mean, I think I'd say the same thing. It was just an awesome atmosphere.
Yeah, even we talked to Coach Roditi last week, and he talked about how going to Mississippi State, because the best teams generally will have good crowds, that all of those Elite Eight teams, they pack their crowds, and it was just a different experience than that typical round of 16 match.
No question. I think it's great, and that was a great win, by the way, for TCU. That's a hard thing to do, what they did, so good for them. That's hard.
Absolutely. All right,
again, Big 12 versus SEC. Just throwing that out there in case you guys I know, and I know that that's not going to make some people on this podcast particularly happy, when he gets back on air. But
no, Coach, we're talking to Pedroso next week. I'm going to tell him you said that.
ACC's second best conference.
No, of course. All right, my last question for you, and Chris, you can chime in on this one as well, in case you don't know, but for our listeners who do know, we are doing our Best of the 2010s series on our Great Shot podcast, looking back at the past 10 years, taking, biggest storylines, results, controversies, all the fun stuff from that, talking about it for our listeners. And we have a college tennis best teams, best individuals of the 2010s pod of the Horizon. Now, in terms of best coach of the decade, you, Peter Smith, it's 1-1A, whichever way you want to do it, because this was your decade, and you were up front to a lot of those best teams. You look on paper in terms of pro results, the two teams on the men's side that maybe stand out as the best. You just can't deny that Virginia team, your senior year, your final year, my senior year, with Colin, Ty, Richie, JC, and I'm forgetting someone who's doing very well.
Henrik.
Yeah, and Henrik as well, obviously. Just all of those guys so successful. But there's also that 2011, I want to say, USC team. Maybe it was 2012, the ones that won in Georgia, where you have Stevie and Ray and Daniel Wynn, Yannick, Emilio, Roberto Quiroz. They all also went on to successful pro careers as well. So I know you don't want to offend anyone, but for our listeners, your opinion, you, again, front row seat, the best men's team you saw in the 2010s.
Whew. Are we including Virginia? Or
of course, Coach. Come on.
Oh my gosh, you're baiting me on this one. Mississippi State. Because of Matt, no, actually, Mississippi State did have some great teams. That's not a laugh. They've had some great teams. But in terms of SC and Virginia and some of the UCLA teams and gosh, Ohio State had some great teams. Wake Forest had some great teams. Virginia. So, gosh, do I get is there a time limit on this? I mean,
I'll give you 3. You can name 3.
I think the team from 2011 at Stanford that SC had was phenomenal. That was a great team, no question about it, led by Stevie Johnson. Mm-hmm. The old 12 team was also fabulous. I'm not going to back up to 08 when we had DeVarman leading the way. He was a special leader and player.
The 11 team, if Courtney doesn't get hurt, that team's the best team. Undefeated, maybe national champions. That might take the cake.
Yeah, that team's up there. Gosh, and then you go into some of my last few teams where you're right. You had Colin Altamirano at 4, JC at 5, and then 6 was Henrik. I mean, those are tough outs. I mean, those guys compete with anyone in the country. So, I don't know. That's a really loaded question. I mean, there's and again, I don't want to forget about some of the teams that Ohio State had. I mean, they've had some unbelievable teams, and it's not easy for them when they do have to play, in the Midwest because that's the way it is, and then have to adjust to the situation down south oftentimes. So. Gosh, I don't know if I could answer this. I mean, this is something I'll just listen to Chris on this one, not the other stuff. But let's see what he's got. Chris, what do you think? What do you got on this one?
Well,
not Rose Holman.
If you didn't win the title, you can't have the discussion.
So I knew you were going to say that, and here's my counterpoint to that is there was a team in the 2010s where Jameer Jenkins played 4 singles. Just think about that.
He did, I know. Yeah, he did in 2011.
And it made sense.
Yeah, in 2011 at Stanford, Singh was at 3. What do we have? Damajan was at 2. Shabazz was at 1. That's a really good team. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But, again, you look at some of the teams we played. I mean, it's got some great teams out there. Like you mentioned SC. I mean, that's going to be a 4-3. And people say, what was your best team? I mean, my 013 team was undefeated, and so you've got, Jameer and then at Mitchell. 1, and now it's Damajan at 2, and you have Mitchell at 3. I mean, that's a pretty good 1, 2, 3. So yeah, Ryan and Justin were in there, and yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of good players in college tennis, and going back to I think the tennis world, there's a lot of respect for college tennis. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have gone from college tennis, done really well on the tour. No matter how long they stay, I think it's an awesome experience, an incredible pathway. And there's so many benefits to dealing with the pressure of college tennis and the Final Four and all the opportunities that you have. I think it's really special. I know you guys do too. So.
Yeah, no, Chris, sorry, I had to cut you off because you went after one of my Virginia teams. You didn't get the chance to answer the question if you'd like to.
No, I mean, I think that's, in all seriousness, when you're asking for the best team of the entire decade, I say clearly it's got to be a team that won the title. And I will, as much as I hate to side with Gruskin and be following him, having seen a lot of some of that Virginia, I would take the Virginia teams.
Yeah. It's, again, that 12 USC team on paper, Yannick Hanifman played, I think it was, 4 or 5 against Justin in the final, 5 to clinch, and he's top 150. I think he broke the top 100 a couple years ago.
A lot of good players out there, no question.
Yeah.
So
I can't believe I'm going to let you cop out of this. I kind of want a year in the team. Yeah, you could have gone with 2012 blue. We'll go with that Mississippi State team. There's a lot of good ones.
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I don't even want to go there. So, but that's usually what Gruskin does to you.
Yeah, look, that's half the experience of this. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know I, again, speak on behalf of college tennis fans everywhere where we say we are so happy to have you back in college tennis on the sideline. It was weird to see you in green, but I'm growing used to it. I don't want to give away all of my biases. Obviously, Michigan's number 1, but let's just say Baylor, obviously, quickly streaking up the rankings.
I appreciate it. Well, Chris, Alex, Matt is not here. You guys do a great job. So look forward to talking to you again, and good luck with following and making your predictions.
Look, I tell Chris every time his predictions are never far from the listed UTR. So if you want to know them beforehand, you can see them.
That's all right. Would you just please Twitter Chris's number? We got to fix it. All right, guys. I should probably go. I think people have already tuned.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, they left in the first 6 minutes when we started talking about my forehand. But seriously, yeah, Coach, thank you so much. Take care. Good luck to you guys. And I always have to ask, can I get a Go Bears out of you?
Thank you. Second Bears.
All right, take care, Coach.
But right now it's start time.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation with the one and only Baylor Bears men's tennis head coach, Brian Boland. Chris, I mean, the big news from the podcast, Jensen Brooksby going to be in college tennis in 2020. Now, we talked about those implications, and I feel like we're both hesitant to even make predictions about Baylor anymore. But with that in mind, I mean, this is huge news, not only for their team, but just for the college tennis men's scene in general in 2020.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously it puts them with Brooksby, along with the addition of Alex Garcia in January, who we weren't sure was going to be there, puts them up there big time. And as you stated, implications on the pro circuit. People were looking to see if he was going to go play on the pro tour, come to college. And obviously he's going to come to college, and he's certainly going to get his opportunities to play other events while there. I mean, it's all about what's best for him, and Coach Boland's going to give him that opportunity. But that's definitely the shattering news that everybody was looking for and hoping that they were going to get from this is, hey, is he really coming in another month or not?
I think this is the first time we've broke news like this. This feels big. I feel like this is a breakthrough for us. So obviously we're, thrilled to hear that as college tennis fans. Yeah, you mentioned you get a player like Jensen Brooksby and Alex Garcia and just all the talent they have now at Baylor. Coach Boland stressed it. It's going to be a really fun college tennis season because there are so many talented teams. He doesn't want to compare. We can with, Florida and how good their roster looks. UNC, USC, Ohio State. It's a wide, we're going to learn a lot at indoors, and there's still so much to learn until, we want to see what this lineup's going to look like. You have now Soto, Boitan, Sven La, Franzen, who've all had such great summers, and it's like Jensen Brooksby is the real deal. So it's going to be really fun to see Coach Boland's team just progress throughout the year, and I think we're both excited now, even more so for this upcoming season.
Oh yeah, it's tremendous, and yeah, what a stacked lineup now that they're going to have. So that clearly puts them right in the middle of the talks with Florida, North Carolina, USC, et cetera, right?
Yeah, well, Coach Boland mentioned no one's probably listening at this point. Hopefully he listens to this because I agree. I think they're up there now in the conversation with any team coming into this 2020 season. But with that in mind, if you want to learn more about this Baylor team, you missed our conversation earlier in the week on the Mini Break podcast. Be sure to go check out our website, crackedrackets.com, where you can find that podcast, Matt's article about the Baylor team, and all of the college contenders preview stuff we have done thus far. Matt, Chris, and I talking, as well as our interviews with those coaches. So go look out for that. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff happening in the tennis world as well. It's the off season, but it's never too early to look for 2020. I'm pretty sure the Australian Open Wildcard Challenge is going on in a couple of places right now. So the 2020 season is upon us before you know it. So go check out the website, the more immediate updates on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have some fun announcements on the Chris Halioris front that we'll save for another podcast because I feel like this one's already going to be long enough. But Chris, I can't thank you enough for doing this. So I want to give you the final words before I give the shout outs.
It was a lot of fun talking to Coach Boland. I'm really, really excited to see, what I'm really looking forward to now, knowing that Jensen's coming, is seeing some of the, and we may have to wait quite a while to see some of those matchups, but really, there's some really, really good talented players in the NCAA, and heck, when we get to the singles and even the team finals, man, there's going to be some high level tennis there.
I will say the only thing from the podcast I'm disappointed in is that you didn't defend me more when Coach went after my lawless lineups take. You should have been on my side.
That's almost undefendable.
Well, if this podcast was good for nothing, it was good for a bunch of laughs. And to make sure those laughs don't get in the way of your audio quality, I want to give a shout out to our super producers, as always, Max Fligner and Daniel Westhoff, who have a of an editing job to do and continue to just bring it week in, week out. These 3-part series, again, don't happen without them taking the time to do all this editing. So huge shout out to them. But with that in mind, I should also mention, forgot to say this, as part of our ArrowBar giveaway, in which you met our new partner, ArrowBar, the delicious tennis energy bar, the tennis-specific energy bar, more potassium than a banana, but actually tastes so good. I mean, seriously, I'm not going to name the other brands because I'm not going to give them the dignity of ArrowBar, who deserves center stage here. But when you think of an energy bar, a mid-match thing, a Gatorade paste, you're like, ugh. Like, am I really going to eat this? Like, I'm not that good at tennis. I don't really need to eat this junk, do I? But I would eat these ArrowBars casually. I mean, people know I do things in my life that work up an appetite, and when I get my first shipment of ArrowBars in, I'm going to be munching on them. They're a delicious, healthy alternative, so I look forward to getting those. And as part of their partnership with us, they were so kind to set up and send us a John Isner signed racket, and so as part of our giveaway to thank you listeners, get you guys excited and involved in the podcast with ArrowBar, we're asking you go leave a 5-star rating as well as a review on this podcast, the Great Shot Podcast or the Cracked Interviews Podcast, to get yourself a chance in the sweepstakes. Now, if you leave a review on all 3 podcasts, your name will be entered into the raffle 3 times. Again, you do the math. My dad says I'm not quantitatively talented, but I do know 3 times is more than 1, so definitely go and do that. Plus, you're already writing 1. You're taking the time, might as well do the other 2 as well. You're there. It would be weirder if you just wrote the 1 and came back later and was like, I'm going to do the second one now. Like, now you're a creep. Now you're trying to do things. And again, Hudson Hatfield right now, leader in the clubhouse, minus 400. But sorry for that additional rant, Chris. With that in mind, for my lovely co-host, Chris Halioris, for our fantastic guest, Baylor men's tennis head coach, Brian Boland, and for our super producers, Max Fligner and Daniel Westhoff, and from our entire teams at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I am your host, Alex Gruskin. We hope you enjoy the podcast and stay tuned next week. Thanks, everyone.